Once rested and refreshed, the French soldiers continue on their way, marching for 12 hours every day. But in Mbabe, the Mamelukes, who represent Ottoman power, bar their route into Cairo, just as the pyramids can be glimpsed in the distance.
The Mamelukes are former slaves, most of whom hailed from the Caucasus and who converted to Islam and have been emancipated. They govern Egypt, but in actual fact, the Mameluke princes are fighting for power among themselves.
When Bonaparte arrived in Egypt, two princes governed the country, Murad Bey and Ibrahim Bey. They reign in Egypt in the name of the Ottoman Sultan.
Murad Bey's troops are in the front line against the French. Those of Ibrahim Bey are in reserve to the east. Facing forces twice as powerful as his own, Bonaparte comes up with a tactical innovation. He uses the infantry square technique. Each division forms a square of 2,000 men in between 2 and 6 tight rows. In the center, the civilians, generals, and baggage are protected. Bonaparte organizes his army in 5 squares. Before him are Murad Bey's forces, 30,000 infantrymen and 10,000 horsemen. DOCSIDE square takes on the first assault. They greet the Mamelukes with salvos of fire at point-blank range. The Mamelukes are valiant fighters, trained to use sabers in hand-to-hand combat. They launch their charge with panache. At the same time, Bonaparte and the other squares close in on Murad Bey's flanks. The Mamelukes are under fire on 2 sides. The infantry squares are as unwavering as they are destructive, and the pride of the Mameluke army is destroyed by the bayonets of the French infantry. Bonaparte loses just 30 soldiers, while Mameluke losses are in the region of some 20,000 men. For reasons of prestige, this victory is later named by Bonaparte the Battle of the Pyramids. Nonetheless, the 2 great Mameluke chiefs managed to escape. Ibrahim Bey to the north and Murad Bey to the south and the deserts of Upper Egypt. Cairo, the biggest city in Egypt, falls to the French.
For Bonaparte, communication is extremely important, just like it is nowadays. He wants to make a big statement by entering Cairo, so he organizes a grandiose event. Everyone is in full uniform and in front of the population, which is about several 100,000. He gives a performance of the hero entering the capital of the pharaohs.
When he enters Cairo, it's a culture shock in 2 ways: discovering the Egyptian people and seeing just how difficult it will be for them to live in this country. Bonaparte wants to reassure the Egyptians and to administer Egypt. So he quickly has to form some kind of council, a divan. And he brings together the main nobility, the ulama of Cairo.
Bonaparte comes to conquer Egypt. To the Egyptians, he's a colonizer, not a liberator. Nonetheless, it's thanks to his publications and the work of those scholars that the Egyptians rediscover their own Egyptianness. One should not forget that the Ottoman Empire erased the word Egypt from history. The national identity was literally wiped out. Egypt had become a vilayat, an Ottoman province.
Villiers and Jourlois' entire lives were contained within their measuring instruments and sketchbooks. Now, for the first time, they're faced with a new world. 2 weeks after Bonaparte's triumphant entry into Cairo, the Bay of Aboukir between Alexandria and Rosetta becomes the theater for a dramatic clash.
Isn't that our fleet anchored out there?
I thought that they were at the old port of Alexandria. It would seem that the waters aren't deep enough.
They're firing at them.
The English are attacking us. Alas, we were bound to run into them. But have no fear. Our fleet is under the command of Vice Admiral Bruyères, an experienced man. We are the same age. He will easily defeat the enemy.
Our ships seem to be immobile, unlike the enemy's.
Whatever General Menus says, Denon, Villiers, and Jollois look on helplessly as the first cannon fire announces the start of a tragedy. The English have discovered the French fleet that has been evading them for months. Admiral Nelson, who had vowed to defeat Bonaparte, splits his fleet in two, and one half manages to slip into the free space between the coast and the French ships. The French vessels, firmly chained to one another under the orders of their admiral, must fight at anchor.
During the Battle of the Nile, a dramatic event takes place amid so many other dramatic events. The flagship of the French fleet, the Orient, explodes. The Orient was one of the biggest, finest, and most powerful ships in the world. And at its first battle, it is blown apart.
The explosion was so loud and of such a force that it is said that the battle stopped for about 15 minutes and everybody just was like in a state of shock. This huge explosion that left everybody a bit dazed.
It's a tragedy, Citizen Conte.
Not at all, General Kléber. We will be able to fight back.
We must face facts. Tomorrow, we will no longer have a fleet. And with no fleet, we will be prisoners in Egypt.
Kléber is right. After the Battle of the Nile, there is no hope of return. They need a new fleet, but France doesn't have a substitute fleet to come and fetch the army from Egypt.
The Battle of Aboukir is obviously a huge, huge success, and one which Nelson will indeed make to his credit. He becomes Baron of the Nile because of this Battle of the Nile, and he has a crocodile on his coat of arms.
Bonaparte was only supposed to examine the possibility of establishing a French presence in Egypt. Now he has no choice but to start establishing it right away.
As an Egyptian historian, I believe the defeat at Aboukir Bay is a very positive moment for the Egyptian people. Bonaparte believes he has to create a permanent presence in Egypt, and he quickly sets to building workshops and roads and creating modern hospitals like those in France. The Egyptians go from barber surgeons to modern medicine.
While Bonaparte is organizing the country's administration, tax system, etc., he is reorganizing his army, making it functional again and calling more upon the scholars.
Citizens, I have brought you here at dawn with the aim of founding an institution for the sciences and the arts, similar to that which we have in France.
And how do you imagine it, General?
To begin with, Citizen Monge, we will improve the construction of local ovens, so the army has good bread, like in France. And we must absolutely find a product that can replace hops in the manufacture of beer, essential for our soldiers.
And what about the water that has caused so much intestinal upset?
I am counting on you to clarify and refresh the water of the Nile, and on you, Conte, to procure the necessary resources to produce gunpowder.
Will we have other missions? All those of a center for research into contemporary and ancient Egypt.
You may study the fauna in this country. But more than that, I'm counting on your help to improve our establishment here and contribute to the development of applied sciences in this country. since they were exiled by barbarism.
That will allow me to explore the numerous ophthalmological and health problems to which we are exposed.
And the local procedures for making indigo or even ammonium.
Citizens, above all else, you must take care of drawing up the regulations in the field. Our first session will be tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Gentlemen?
The Egyptian Institute aims to grow and propagate the Enlightenment in Egypt and to research, study and publish on natural, industrial and historical matters. It has 4 departments: mathematics, physics, political economics, and literature and the arts.
Bonaparte requisitioned several contiguous palaces to create a kind of science center with laboratories. And so the Egyptian Institute is created, with the mathematician Monge as its first president, and Bonaparte himself as vice president, since he considers himself to be a scholar.
I would have loved to have been a member of the Institute in order to live in this superb palace.
I quite understand. We're enjoying wonderful peace here.
Indeed, it's even better appointed, and I think it's even more magnificent here than in the Louvre.
There's everything here, isn't there? We're so lucky it's all freely available. And there will soon be an observatory and a chemistry laboratory. Offices for natural history, physics, mineralogy, and even rooms dedicated to archaeology. We don't have such luck, do we, Hourlier?
Indeed, our work is extremely monotonous.
We only really have one occupation: to measure the Nile. We are surveyors, granted, but from Alexandria to Cairo, that's all we've done. And I'm sick of all this water, always water. We see little else.
Don't be disheartened, my friend. Soon we'll be exploring the remains of the former canal that linked the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. It dates from the times of the pharaohs.
You would go north, while I aspire to head south. I didn't come to Egypt to be satisfied with just Cairo. No, I want to explore a land that's shrouded in a veil of mystery that for 2,000 years has been unexplored by any European.
Upper Egypt.
Not only is Bonaparte organizing the work of the scholars in Cairo, he's also trying to play down the defeat in Aboukir Bay by dazzling the Egyptians. He assures them once again that he doesn't simply respect their religion, he's fascinated by it.
Islam is a major issue for Bonaparte and the entire French army during the occupation of the country for the 3 years that the Egyptian expedition lasts. He realizes that Islam is part of the daily lives of Egyptians. In meetings with the scholars and the ulema of the Divan, he even discusses the possibility of converting to Islam.
Bonaparte celebrates the birth of the Prophet for 4 days with unprecedented magnificence. On the banks of the Nile, in front of the French army chiefs and all the city's public figures, the French troops parade with great pomp to impress the Egyptians.
The ulema are not convinced by what Bonaparte and his entourage say. These Orientalists make grammatical errors in Arabic, the sacred language, the language of the Prophet. There is both suspicion and rejection.